How are we doing? I hope we're doing good. Good. I'm seeing a thumbs up. That's good. I hope we had nice Thanksgivings, and I hope we probably ate a lot. I don't know. Anybody have a favorite food? You can always tell me in the chat if you want. Favorite food that you had at Thanksgiving this year? Or you can unmute yourself too. Stuffing? I'm thinking that's what that meant. Stuffing? Stuffing. I'm not gonna lie, this is the first year in a long time that I got a chance to make stuffing, and it was really good. I don't know what I did, but I thought it was really good. Ooh, ham and mashed potatoes. Second person to say ham. I'm impressed with the ham over the turkey. Venison, nice. I had venison like the day before Thanksgiving. We tried that. Nice. Cornbread. I'm not gonna lie, we didn't have cornbread this year, and I missed it. I love cornbread, and we didn't make it. Pie. See, pie was mine. Pie was mine. I had pecan pie. That is my weakness because if anybody has ever made a pecan pie is basically sugar with sugar. If you look at the recipe, it's like corn syrup. It's the Karo syrup, which is just basically like liquid sugar, and then sugar, and then they throw in like a few eggs and butter, and then pecans. That's it. It's sugar with sugar in a crust. It is amazing. I don't know how you don't like that. It's like kryptonite for me. I could just eat the whole thing all by myself. I love it. Deviled eggs. We never do deviled eggs at Thanksgiving. Nice, nice, good. All right. Are we still eating leftovers? We have like maybe one more round of leftovers, I think, in our fridge. And we froze a bunch, but anybody still doing it? We have one more round. Okay. I hope maybe you're off turkey. We're not doing turkey tonight. I'm kind of getting to that point where I'm like turkeyed out, but it's okay. It's all right. Two 15-pound turkeys left. Holy cow. How many people did you have at your house? Or did you just...
Well, I got quarantined because I was in close contact with somebody, so I didn't have a Thanksgiving.
Ah, poop. Okay, so how long are you in the quarantine?
I'm not really anymore. It was supposed to be for last week, but I'm good
Gotcha.
now.
Okay, all right, awesome. Okay. Allie, you had 20 people. Oh my goodness. Holy cow. That's crazy. That's big. We had it was my husband and myself and my dog and 20 pounds of turkey. And my dog, I think, ate his fair share. And then it was really funny because I do know tryptophan kicked in. And by 7 o'clock at night, he was passed out. He just didn't do anything. I thought it was hilarious. 54 pounds of venison and a 20-pound turkey. Holy. And was that for like everybody? Like you had family and everybody coming on over? Or did you just like cook a boatload so then you had it cooked and now you have it frozen?
We had like 70 pounds of venison because my family came over, but
Ooh.
We still have a lot left. And we didn't eat turkey.
And you didn't eat turkey?
Nope. We had ham and venison.
Wow. Wow. That is a lot of venison. Was it like a whole bunch of different cuts or did you just like different?
I don't know. We got it from the butcher the day before. So
Gotcha. Okay. Okay. Wow. That is big. Normally we have a lot of people. Normally our Thanksgiving is like anywhere from like 16 to 20 people. And this year we were all by ourselves. So it was a different Thanksgiving. I'm sure everybody kind of had a different Thanksgiving this year. If you didn't, you're lucky. We kind of had a different Thanksgiving. My parents said, nope, we're not coming. So it was kind of sad, but we Zoomed with everybody and I don't know, kind of this virtual stuff. I'm a little bit over it, but I guess the good thing is I didn't have to share my leftovers with anyone. So I had pecan pie all to myself and I didn't have to be polite and give it to anybody. It was just all mine, which was wonderful. So anyways, here we are. And we are gonna do just a little bit of math today, go figure. Let me, I guess, clue you in on schedule for today. Let me just remind myself too. So we are here until about 1:15. So we got about 30 minutes of math that we're gonna be doing today. And then from 1:20 to 2 o'clock, we have optional office hours. So if you wanna come and see me, I will be there. We can do test corrections. I can go over some of the work that we did today or some of the stuff that we did last week. Completely up to you. I know some of you sent me test corrections, and I think I told you last week I wasn't going to have a chance to take a look at them until either today or tomorrow because I was working on getting all of your quizzes graded and done, which I was able to last week, Tuesday. So if you haven't looked, all of your quizzes have been returned. You can check out the grades. And I should start to look at some test corrections that you sent me today and tomorrow, and hopefully all of those can be returned to you, fingers crossed. Hopefully all of those can be returned to you by tomorrow so that you can see, and then I'll update your grade in School Tool. And if I'm on my game, I can even send you what your grade is, just so that you have that. Okay, so today my plan is we're going to start with the lesson that we did from last class, which was like the notes, the video notes. We had skipped a couple of questions just for time being. So what I am going to do is share my screen with you guys. And I am going to go to your classroom. And we are going to start here where it says lesson 1124. That was the video notes that I said we had a couple of questions that we still need to work on. So if you can open those up, I think I just need to press submit for my attendance. Give me 1 second here. Okay, so we should be somewhere looking like this. And if you can either unmute yourself or in the chat window, remind me. I believe we on this did maybe up to question, well, let's take a look at number 4. I think on number 4 we did letter C. Does that
What
sound
is
right?
this in?
5.
This should be, okay, so if we're over here, 1124.
Oh, 1124.
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, no problem. So we got up to number 5, I'm hearing?
Yeah.
Okay, out of number 4, what did we complete? I think we completed letter C, and that may have been it. Does that sound about right?
Yeah.
Okay. So here's what I want to do. I want to do a couple of these problems. Some of these are, I hate to say the word easier. I hate it when my professors would say that because it was like, well, these are still challenging for me. They're going to be a little fewer steps. Maybe that's the way I'm going to put it. Just to kind of remind us how we're going to do some of this stuff. We're going to go through this today. And then we may get into the classwork for today, which on our classroom page does say a lesson 1130. And then whatever we don't finish from this today is what we're going to do tomorrow. So we have time to practice today, time to practice tomorrow. Just keep that in mind as we're going through it. I'm going to tell you, as always, if you have questions as we're going through this, please ask. Please just unmute yourself and yell. That's probably the best way to get in touch with me. If you have any questions, you can use the chat window as well. I just sometimes don't always see them right away. Okay, so we're going to start with letter A. And just a reminder of what we're doing. We're solving inequalities, quadratic inequalities. So it's quadratic because we have an x squared term. Inequality because we have a less than or a greater than, or in this case, we have a less than or equal to sign. And step 1 for doing all of this is we had to find the zeros. So this is like what we did in our units before, where we would take our equation and we would set this equal to 0 and then factor. Okay, so if we're going to factor this, because I have a coefficient in front of my x squared term of 1, we're going to do the easier factoring, saying I need something that's going to multiply to be negative 36. And it has to add to be a negative 5. Okay, and if we look at factors of these, 9 and 4 will multiply to be 36. The sign of our middle term, which in this case is a negative, goes with our larger factor. So I have a negative 9 times a positive 4 would get me a negative 36, and a negative 9 plus 4 would get me a negative 5. So those looks like the factors that we're going to be using. Okay, x squared, when I factor that, that's going to go into x and x. And then we're going to fill in the blanks with the 2 numbers that we just found, a negative 9 and a positive 4. Okay, and remember what we're doing, we're trying to find zeros. So if I want to find zeros, I'm going to take each of these factors, set them equal to 0. And then I'm going to solve. Okay, so if I'm going to solve, I'm going to add over the 9, so that's going to tell me x is equal to 9. Or I'd subtract over the 4, and that's going to tell me x is equal to -4. Okay, so that was step 1. Step 2, we said, let's put this on a number line and then let's test it out. Okay, so I'm going to put this on a number line. And I know I had said last time, just be careful, lowest number on the left, highest number on the right, because of things like this. I see a 9 and I see a -4, and sometimes it's just really easy to say, ooh, here goes 9. Nope, this is your -4. Lowest number on the left, highest number on the right. And now we want to test. Okay, so if I'm going to test this, I'm going to pick a value. I like to start with 0 if I can, and I can because 0 is going to be in this middle region here. And the reason I pick 0 is 0 is a nice easy one to kind of plug in and simplify and test out. Okay, so I'm going to pick 0 and plug this in. I have 0 squared minus 5 times 0 minus 36, and I'm trying to see, is that less than or equal to 0? Okay, so if we simplify, 0 squared is 0, minus 5 times 0 is 0. So now I get something that says -36 is less than or equal to 0. And that's true. -36 is less than or equal to 0. So this is a true part. And remember, we're trying to figure out what is true, what is not. That's true. Okay? And we said if it's true in between, which it is, then it should be false on the outside, and vice versa. If it was false in between, it should be true on the outside. Okay, so we can even test this if we wanted to. You could pick a number. We could say pick 10 and plug that in. And what you would see is the number that you would get here would not be less than 0. It would actually be way more than 0. 10 squared is 100. Minus 5 times 10, that's 50. So 100 minus 50 is 50. 50 minus 36, that's a number that's greater than 0. So that would be false here. And then the same thing over here, it would be false. Okay, so now what we need to do is we need to make a graph of this. Okay, so I'm going to switch my colors so we can see what's going on. So first things first. Because this is a less than or equal to, it can equal my zeros. So right here, sorry, this should be a filled in circle. This here at my 0 should be a filled in circle. Those are filled in, darkened in circles. And now I want to connect the lines of the true part of the inequality. So if I connect my line of the true part, that's my true part, that's my graph. Okay, so now we have to write our answer also in set builder notation. Set builder notation is that fancy notation where we have the squiggle brackets, and we do something that says X with the bar, and that bar stands for such that. X such that. And now I have to be able to write this idea. So whenever I see something like this, I think, I know I need a -4, and I know I need a 9, and I know X is in between them, because that's where I drew my line. Then all I have to do is fill in the blank with the sign of the equation, which is a less than or equal to. And that's my answer. So here is our set builder notation. And then up here, this is our graph of the inequality. Okay, let me stop and say, if you got a question, unmute yourself and yell. Let me see if I can answer it. Okay, let's try letter B then. So now B is going to be a little bit more challenging, even though everything's already over to one side of the inequality. Notice that we have to do some hard trinomial factoring. And the reason I say that again is because I have a number greater than 1 here. So your hard trinomial factoring, we have to first start by saying, let's multiply the first and the last. And if I do that, that tells me I need to find a number that's going to multiply to be 60 and still add to be my middle term. And my middle term that we have here is a positive 28. Okay, so I'd be looking for factors of negative 60 and positive 28. And if I look at those factors, I could pick something like, how about 30 and 2? Okay, 30 and 2, that multiplies to be negative 60. And when I put my signs on it, right, so middle term, sign of the middle term, which is a positive, goes with my larger factor. So that's a positive 30, which means 2 has to be negative because a positive times a negative gets you a negative. And then if I add, I get a positive 28. Okay, so the harder trinomial factoring, remember what we have to do. Copy your first term. Split that middle term up into the 2 factors that we just found. So how about a positive 30x, don't forget your x, and a negative 2x, and a minus 12, and it's greater than 0. Okay, so now we're going to factor by grouping. Okay, so factoring by grouping, I'm going to group my first 2, and then I group my second 2. And we're going to pull out common terms. So common in these 2 terms, I can pull out both a 5 and an x, and that's going to leave me with x plus 6. If I go to my next 2 terms, I'm going to pull out a negative 2. So negative 2 times x gets me negative 2x. Negative 2 times a positive 6 gets me negative 12. Okay, and I'm going to say equal to 0 because I guess keep in mind what we're doing is we're trying to make this thing equal to 0. So probably even back here, it might be easier if I change that to an equal sign because remember step 1, we're trying to solve for the zeros. Okay, so continuing on with the factoring, remember what we have. The repeated factor is 1. And then the stuff on the outside, 5x minus 2, that's your other factor. And we are trying to find the zeros. Okay, so if I'm trying to find the zeros, I set each of these equal to 0. That means 1 0 here, if I solved for x, would be negative 6. And if I set this equal to 0, I would have to add over a 2, divide by 5. That would get me 2/5. Okay, so number line. Lowest number on the left, highest number on the right, and we test. And again, I always like to try and test a 0 if I can. It just makes calculations easier because if it's true here, it's false here, and vice versa. If it's false here, it's true here, okay? And 0 is nice because 0 falls right in the middle. So I'm going to take my 0 and I'm going to plug it in. I'll try and do this work over here on the side. So I have 5 times 0 squared plus 28 times 0 minus 12, and I'm trying to see, is that greater than 0? Okay, so if I plug this all in, anything times 0 is 0, so that first term is 0, my second term is 0, I'm left with a negative 12 being greater than 0, and that's not true. So I know that this middle section here is false. So if it's false here, it's got to be true on the outside. And you can always check just to make sure that you haven't done anything weird. Okay, so maybe I would check a 1 because 1 would be over in this section. Okay, so if I do 5 times 1 squared plus 28 times 1 minus 12. Okay, so 5 times 1 squared. 1 squared is 1 times 5, I get 5. 5 plus 28, so that's 32. 32 minus 12, that's going to get me 20. 20 is definitely greater than 0, so this is true. So it looks like what we did is okay. And again, you can test a number over here, but this will also then be true. Okay, so we're going to do our graph now. So keep in mind, I need to have some sort of a circle, whether it's a closed circle or an open circle at our zeros. And in this case, going back to our original function, because it's greater than 0, only greater than, not equal to, I have an open circle and an open circle. And now I want my arrows to point towards the true part of my graph. So there's my true part, and here's my true part. So right there, that's going to be the graph on a number line. Okay. Writing it in set builder notation. So again, we start with our fancy squiggle brackets. We have x such that. Okay, now I need to show that x is less than -6. So x is less than -6, or the other answer I have is x is greater than 2/5. And that would be my set builder notation. Okay, so again, let me stop there. Let me let you think about that for a minute or three. Yell if you have any questions. Okay. We did not do letter D, is that correct?
Yeah, we didn't do D.
Okay, let's do that one then. Thank you. All right, so now this one, okay, I know we did C, maybe take a look back at letter C and let's see how we did that one. For letter D, notice the difference in D versus what we have in A and B. Notice how we have information on both sides of the equation. We want to get everything over to one side of the equation. And my rule of thumb is keep your x squared term positive. So that means I'm bringing everything to the left. Okay, so I'm going to first start by subtracting the 14x. And don't panic, because I hope that you're seeing that the x's go away. So now you just have x squared minus 6 is less than 19. No biggie, we can still do this. Keep the 19 going to the left. So again, I'm going to subtract the 19 over. And now I have something like this. X squared minus 25 is less than 0. Here we have a difference of perfect squares. So when we want to factor, it's going to be a little bit easier than the factoring that we did up above. All we have to do is think, since they're both perfect squares, and remember, I'm solving for my zeros. So if I took the square root of x, we get x. And if I take the square root of 25, we get 5. And the difference of perfect squares would say 1 is minus, 1 is plus. Okay, so continuing, we set each of these equal to 0. So if I set this equal to 0 and solve, I have 1 0 that's a 5. Okay. And if I set this equal to 0 and solve, I have 1 0 that's a negative 5. And so now we do our number line. Remember, low number on the left, high number on the right. And when we are testing this, keep in mind what we're plugging this into. We're going to plug it into what we pulled everything over onto one side of the equation. We're plugging it into that. Okay, and as always, if we can test 0, which we can, notice where 0 is, 0 is right there. I'm going to plug that in and we're going to see how that goes. Okay, so if I plug in a 0, I have 0 squared minus 25 is less than 0. And if we solve, that gives me something that says a negative 25 is less than 0. And that is true. So in this region right here, this is true. So as soon as I found my true part inside, that means my false part is on the outside. And again, you can test it, but I promise you, as long as you've done all your math correctly, that's going to be false. Now we got to make our graph. Okay, so to make your graph, let's go back to the zeros. You either need a closed circle or you need an open circle. And because this is just less than, there's no equal to or anything there, we're going to get open circles. So I get an open circle at -5, open circle at +5. And I want to draw my arrows in the true section. So my arrows would point towards each other. In other words, I just get that connected line. And that's your graph. Okay. Set builder notation. Again, X such that. Okay. Because it's on the inside, I think to myself, what do I have? I have a -5. X is on the inside, a +5, and I sandwich it with the sign that was given to me in the formula. There's your set builder notation. Okay, again, let me stop. Let me ask, do we have questions? Okay, let's take a look at number 6 because I don't believe we did that, correct?
We did not do 6 either.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so I'm going to show you 2 different ways. If you have a calculator, you may want to bust it out. If not, I'm going to stop sharing my screen and I'm going to show you 2 ways that we can solve this. Okay, so what I have done, let me graph this. I'm going to stop sharing my screen. I'm going to hold this calculator up because here's our technology that we have. So there's your calculator. There's my calculator. There's your graph. Okay, so on the graph, it says which of the following represents the solution set of the inequality. Okay, so a couple of things here. I can show you 2 different ways that our calculator is helpful. Number 1, if I understand that notation, so -2x² plus 7x minus 3 is greater than 0. That greater than means it has to be above the x-axis. So I can look and I can say I need to find the zeros, and just either looking at it or I can go to the table. I could say my zeros are going to be located at 1/2 and at 3. And if it needs to be above the x-axis, I want to think, well, how am I going to get it above the x-axis? So let me give you a second. So here is our graph. I think my calculator just went dark. There we go. And in the chat window for me, taking a look at this graph and taking a look at our answers that are given to us, tell me what you think the answer is. So we have either choice 1, 2, 3, or 4. And in the chat window, if you could just type into me what you think the answer would be based off of this graph. So the greater than 0 is saying it's above the x-axis. And I want to think, would that be 1, 2, 3, or 4? Emily's suggesting maybe 1. 1 with a question mark is her guess. What else do we have here? Kyle's thinking either 1 or 4. Okay. Kyle, I like your reasoning because you at least got rid of choices 2 and 3 because those are not zeros. So I think that's good thought. I'm seeing a bunch of 1s coming in, and 1 to me looks like that is actually going to be your answer, so that's good. Okay, I'm going to show you one more thing that the calculator can do for us. Give me 1 second here. So if you have your calculator, and everybody can see that tab, if you press your delete button, I'm going to press my delete button once I find it. Hold on. Okay, here's my delete button. Notice what comes up. You get the option of relation number 6. So I'm going to scroll down to that and press enter. And now notice what your top bar looks like. It looks like you can type anything in that you want. And I do want to type in that inequality that we have on number 6, just like it's shown. So I have a -2x² plus 7x minus 3. And so here's where we're at. And now I need to put in greater than 0. Okay, so to get your greater than, you're going to press your control button and your equal sign. And that should pull up an option that looks like this. Control equals, pull up this option. Now I just want greater than. So actually the one that's highlighted is the one I want. And then I'm going to type 0 and graph. And now notice what that gives us. Okay, so mine's not in the best window right now, but notice what that gives us. That gives us that region of where I want our answers to be. That's like saying, hey, it's got to be in between here. So that may be helpful when trying to pick the right answer. And 3. So if you did kind of like what Kyle did, he said, well, it could be 2 or 3 because it doesn't have like the negative answers. It has to be in between there. That might be a way to say, all right, well, it's got to be inside. It's got to be pointing in between there. So you want to have choice 1. What are we thinking? Okay, so here's what we're going to do. We finished that one. I'm going to reshare my screen. We are going to go now to the classroom tab for the day to day. So we're going to open up this lesson here. Okay, and when we open it, we should get, let me open it. Maybe I'll just go right away to Cami. And it's something that looks kind of like this. Here's what I'm going to ask. I want you to try and solve number 1 on your own. Okay, you can use a calculator. You could do the algebra that we did. You could do plug and chug until you get an answer. But I want you to get an answer anyway. And when you have an answer, I'd like you to type your answer in the chat window for me, please. Okay, so take a minute or two, see what you can do to solve this. When you get an answer, when you get a thought, type it into the chat window, please. Seeing ones. Okay, let's try 1. So choice 1 would say 1 squared plus 1 minus 2 is greater than 0. So 1 squared being 1, plus 1 is 2. Oops, the daisies. Hold on 1 second. 1 squared plus 1 minus 2, if we simplified. So 1 plus 1 is 2, 2 minus 2 is 0. I can't say 0 is greater than 0. I can say it's equal to 0, but notice I don't have an equal to sign here. So I can't do that. It can't be choice 1. Anybody have a different thought? I'm seeing a 4 from Kevin. Okay, so let's maybe try 4. Okay, so choice 4, I have a negative 4 squared plus negative 4 minus 2 being greater than 0. Okay, so negative 4, notice how I put that negative in parentheses. Negative 4 squared is 16 plus a negative 4 minus 2 is greater than 0. So negative 16 minus 4 is 12. 12 minus 2 is 10. 10 is in fact greater than 0. This would be your answer. Okay. Hope that makes sense for people. Okay. So I'm going to stop sharing this. So let me just touch base with you guys. So no homework today. We are going to pick up the same worksheet tomorrow and keep practicing for tomorrow. I will see you again tomorrow, same time, same place. We do have office hours in about 5 minutes. So again, I will be there if you need me. And then otherwise, I think that's it. Any questions for me before I let you guys go? Okay. I'll see you guys tomorrow. Have a good day.
You too.
Thank you.